Hey everybody, a long time no see, at least from the outdoors. He's Irish O'Fell, managing editor of Warchant.com. I'm Aslan Hajavani. Thanks for joining us. An impromptu, I guess you can call it, roundtable behind us here at the Al Dunlap practice facility with the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, University President John Thrasher, David Coburn, the athletics director, as well as Mike Norvell, Keyshawn Helton, and Joshua Kando just went down a few minutes ago. And they wanted to make seems like a unified plea to piggyback off the whole hashtag we want to play sort of movement. Ira, for whatever beating the college football season took on Sunday on social media, this felt like a equally impactful, strong-willed sort of rebuttal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it almost felt like a pep rally at times. But I think President Thrasher, I think, enunciated it pretty well a couple of times. He said, look, I just want to get the word to the other schools and these other conferences that might be teetering. He used the word teetering at least twice, to let them know that we're confident. We believe we can do this. We think it's worth moving forward with the process. They also sounded really confident about the ACC and the SEC. Not so much about the Big Ten and the Pac-12, but they said they're hoping that some of the schools, one thing that I think either President Thrasher or David Coburn said was they feel like there are schools in those conferences that aren't sure, that maybe still want to play. So they're kind of reaching out to them to just try to get some positive news out there, because there's a lot of negative news. In fact, one of the interesting words John Thrasher used was red herring to describe some of the concerns that are out there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But clearly, Florida State and the state of Florida want to play football.
Right. David Coburn, as well as head football coach Mike Norvell, also underscored just how safe this sort of quasi-bubble they're under right now is. And Ron DeSantis was sort of conducting that narrative, if you will. The players also seem to agree wholeheartedly. Keyshawn Helton, Joshua Kando, I think the most encouraging thing for the crowd, I think, that does have concern about whether or not you can pull the season off in a safe and healthy fashion for the players is what Kando and Helton did say. I mean, they said they come here, they practice, they go home, and that's a wrap. They're staying disciplined, they're staying accountable. So for me, that was the biggest message I got from the players, and in terms of a comforting thing. But they want to let everybody know that this is safe, and we heard Nick Saban talk about this is the safest place for the players to be, and that seemed to be the rallying cry for most of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people will look at the words of a college football player and say, of course, you just want to play. You're going to say what you have to say. But, you got to take them at their word. They said they feel more comfortable here because they know their teammates are being held accountable, their coaches are being as safe as possible. They have all this medical staff than they would be if they basically what he said is, if we're not playing football, if we don't have all of these practices and meetings, we're not going to sit in our room all the time. That's not realistic. I think Keyshawn Helton said that. We're going to go out and be college students, which might put them more at risk. So I thought their statements, again, they're obviously not unbiased parties. This is all about them, but I thought they were pretty strong.
Scheduling also a question, right? People want to see Florida State and Florida play with all the conference-only scheduling going on. I think somebody even asked David Coburn about whether or not this opened the door for other possibilities if certain teams want to kind of maybe break from their conference and try to play some football games. And while he wasn't firm with any sort of idea, it did seem like that's probably a conversation athletic directors are having if certain teams want to continue to play, even if their conference doesn't.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, we asked the question also of Governor DeSantis, if the conferences don't play, is it possible you maybe do something with the state of Florida? I mean, you have a lot of really good football programs in the state of Florida. And he said, he was confident that the ACC and the SEC are still looking good. He feels good about their chances. But if not, he said he would definitely support it. He talked about not just the economic impact of these schools and the communities, but also, the opportunity for these guys to play. Josh Kando, made a pretty impassioned plea that he's trying to put some stuff on tape.
What are your aspirations beyond Florida State in terms of playing at the next level?
I want to go pro. Yes, sir. I want to go pro. I need to play. I need to get some film,
He's trying to get to the NFL. And, and the reason they brought Josh Kando and Keyshawn Helton was because both of those guys had their seasons last year cut short due to injury. They've been rehabbing for, 8, 9, 10, 12 months to get back to this point. And they talked about how devastated they would be if they couldn't play a season, no matter who it's against.
Afterwards, there were some breakouts with President John Thrasher and Athletics Director David Coburn. What were some of the things that you thought stood out in the conversation with them?
There's a couple of details we followed up on. Coach Norvell during the press conference mentioned that they've had 2 players opt out of concerns of COVID. We knew about Jamarcus Chapman, who opted out the other day. Turns out another defensive lineman, Dennis Briggs, who was another backup defensive lineman, probably definitely a little bit more prominent of a player, a guy that played a lot last season, was probably going to be in that top 3 or 4 defensive tackle rotation. He has opted out as well. Those are the only 2 so far out of 115, 120 players. We also asked a couple questions about logistics of other sports. Basically, it sounds like all the other sports right now are kind of on hold. Basketball players are here. They've started doing some things, but basically these other sports can't really go forward until they know what's going to happen with football, because football provides the money that supports these other sports. The last thing I thought was interesting, we asked him about tailgating, and a lot of people want to know if there are games, can you tailgate? He said the ACC hasn't made a decision yet, but the way he feels right now, and he thinks most people feel, is people are going to tailgate whether or not you design tailgating spots for them next to the stadium or not. So it would be better to have tailgating where you can kind of control it and police it, as opposed to letting people just run amok outside of those near the stadium. So it sounds like there might be some sort of tailgating if there are games in fact played.
This whole thing kind of boils down to a stock market, it feels like, Ira. There's up days, there's down days, there are up days, there's down days. I felt like with the sort of the language, the words that were used by President John Thrasher, the way that Governor Ron DeSantis conducted the questioning of the players and such, like I 5 minutes ago, I'm like, I can't see how they do not play this season. As bleak as Sunday looked, this sort of impassioned plea to me makes me think that they're going to play. And I think David Coburn's the best man. The way he described it was, we're going to give it our best shot, and I think that's all you can really ask for, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's never going to say it's a 100% done deal until they're kicking the ball off. Until we have total leather, as Gene Deckeroff would say.
Total leather, all right.
But I think clearly this wasn't a message about trying to salvage the ACC or send a message to the SEC. This was about those other conferences, trying to get them to stay on board. They all feel very good about the ACC. Everything we've heard is that the ACC is pretty resolute, unless they get new information that makes them think they can't. And then when I asked DeSantis about the schools in Florida, he said, well, we feel really good about the ACC, and basically I know the SEC is going to play, is basically what he said. So, if those 2 conferences can go on, and then even if they couldn't, maybe there is some sort of Florida round robin tournament of games. You could probably get 5-6 games out of that. So I feel like, to your point, there's a better than decent chance we're going to see some sort of football.
All right. Do stay connected to warchant.com. We'll have a live edition of Wake Up Warchant on YouTube at 5:30 p.m. Thanks to Corey for that very nice little hour of the day. I can maybe do something afterwards. And we got recruiting stuff, obviously. Offers of the day is up on the website as well. And Ira will have Ira stuff. Yeah, read that column if you haven't already, just about the 2020 season and where it stands right now. Ira, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, man.